Welcome back to End is the Future, a podcast that brings together great minds to address the opportunities and challenges of making businesses both sustainable and profitable. I am Ilham Kadri, and I'm delighted to be your host today. If you are as passionate about sustainable business as I am, let's explore how End is the Future together. So today, I'm delighted to be speaking with my good friend Feike Sijbesma, who is the former CEO of DSM. During his time as a CEO, Feike transformed DSM into a company focused on health, nutrition, and materials. And it has been considered a frontrunner in sustainability ever since. And by the way, he did all this while tripling DSM's value. He's, for me and for many, a great example of achieving the power of the end and making companies profitable and sustainable. Feike, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Ilham.
I know that a lot of people, Feike, know you as a highly successful CEO. But I wanted to start this podcast getting to know more about your background. And I know you were born and raised in the beautiful land of the Netherlands, where I also lived for many years, and I loved it. Maybe to start with, Feike, what were some of those real experience, intimate one, right? Growing up that really shaped you and you remember and you want to share with our audience?
Well, I grew up in a let's say normal family. My father was an insurance agent, and my mother didn't work. Though later in her life she started working, which I really liked a lot. I was not very good at school. They switched even school for me, so I didn't thought I would make any career. My parents neither, by the way, because it was not simple in the beginning, but still it came later on. And it was a normal family, but with strong values also. I think what is right, what is wrong, what should we do, how should we serve society, those kind of things were in the family.
Let me jump from your upbringing to becoming a CEO of DSM. Many people, of course, know and ask what you wanted to do, and you gave such a great answer in one of your YouTube video. You said you wanted to run the company successfully and improve the state of the world, and I always remember this. Right? What was the reaction at that time, and now 15 years later, do you think Feike people's mindsets have shifted?
I think so. When I made that statement, when I just became CEO in 2007, so 15 years ago, people said, what ends? Not ends. A successful company and improving the state of the world. So therefore, by the way, Ilham, I like very much that you in this podcast address the power of the end. And that is exactly what I was doing and what I believe in. And I try to give the answer. And the reason is that I say, of course, a company is not a charity foundation. So we need to make our own money. Otherwise, we will go bankrupt and do not exist anymore. And of course, we have shareholders like pension funds, with normal people who would like to see a return over 30 years to be able to get a pension, where pension funds invest in the company. So of course we need to make money. But the other thing is, as a company, we have impact on the world. The world never started by making money. The economy started by barter trade. You do this, I do this, we exchange goods, and we live all happily here together. So companies have a responsibility, and the more impact they have, the more responsibility they have to improve the state of the world. So I said, it is and. Now some people say, well, if you say one more time and, we believe that we can forget your stock and that the stock will go down and not up over your period, and that you focus more on improving the state of the world. So I found it a little bit an uphill battle at that moment in time, because exactly to infect your podcast, people say those two things are mutually exclusive.
Mm.
And I said, let me prove it is not mutually exclusive. Today, I think many people say, okay, you are right because you more than tripled your share price and you created great value and you became one of the most sustainable companies. And okay, you're right. They can go hand in hand together. It was not excluded. They
Absolutely.
can go hand in hand. And I think we're moving, if we fast forward 15 years, they will go. They must
Yeah.
go. They have to
Yeah.
go hand in hand together. Otherwise, the millennials won't work for you anymore. Your
Yeah.
consumers don't buy your products anymore. You lose your license to operate. So I think I see a shift. I see a shift. And to be honest, not only with companies, but also on the investor side. I think
Yeah.
they are shifting as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
glad I see a shift, but in the beginning, it was a little bit uphill battle.
Absolutely. And you were a pioneer, definitely. And actually you talked about investors, the markets and the external audience. What's about the internal audience? And I know as a CEO, you were one of my first role models, thinking about the purpose for the company. Was the same for me, for example, when I joined Solvay. I had to repurpose even a 160 years old company. And I remember you came to the conclusion at at DSM to create brighter lives for people today and generation to come. So help our audience. How did you get there? How did you embark your people to craft that purpose and how you get them on board? Did you run to any challenges you can share with us?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was difficult also transforming DSM because I want to make the company more future proof. That
Mhm.
means also that I stopped some activities, that I divested some activities, that we made
Mm.
the switch and that we transformed the company. And of course, some former board members, some former colleagues, some board members at that moment in time found that transition all very complicated. Some said, well, you are divesting or killing our legacy. I said, no, no, no. I'm standing on your shoulders and I built further. Um, so it was difficult. And of course, also in transforming the company, uh, it was a bulk chemical company and cost was very important, the cost leadership and efficiency, etc. Marketing and positioning outside and innovation was a little bit less important. And I made that change. And that means also that we need to make a change in culture, need to make a change in some people or how we deal together. We did many different things on innovation, which became a very important driver for success. But also some innovations did not succeed. So we made the whole of failures. We organized funerals for failed projects, etc., to stimulate internally innovation and to get the people on board. And indeed, at the end of the day, we said, well, what are we doing? In fact, we're trying here to improve lives of many people, people today and generations to come, with the planet, with society, etc. And to be honest, that resonated very well to our own people because, of course, the people work for a salary to pay the car and the mortgage and their living. But people want to do something meaningful also. People
Yeah.
like it. And
Yeah.
that brought at a certain moment when we were in this transition, DSM's name is coming from 125 years ago, Dutch state mines. But we are not Dutch anymore. We are not owned by the state for decades anymore. And we have no mines anymore. But we kept the three letters. And some younger people in DSM said, Feike, what DSM stands for, doing something meaningful. And I thought, that's true.
Mm.
I like
Mhm.
that. Thank you.
I heard that story and the one experience that was particularly moving for you when you met that mother and child living in poverty in Bangladesh, if I remember well.
Correct.
And I know that's later on you've been engaging into WFP and other great initiative. But let's come back to that experience. Can you tell our listeners more about it?
Well, uh, it was building on the program we started with the World Food Program, and I wanted to help the World Food Program, and I realized that a lot of the food help in the world is only carbohydrate rich. We are one of the biggest nutritional ingredients companies. So I wanted to share all our knowledge and products with them. And in one of the trips with the World Food Program to Bangladesh, we were there at a village which was so poor and people really hungry. And at a certain moment, a mother gave her child and put it in my arms, and I was totally confused and said to the translator, what is this? And she said, in Bangladeshi. And I said, what do I know? And said, mother said, and 2 words. And with the translation at the end, she said, that she has 6 children, and that when you come back in 2 years, she will not have 6 children anymore.
Wow.
And that touched me, and I was standing there, and it was a very, smart lady. I don't know, I don't think any education, but she said that a certain one in Bangladesh, that if you come back, etc. She said, I know, maybe even the world knows. And I will always remember that. And at the end, I was confused. I thought, should I take her baby? No, I cannot, but I follow her. At the end, of course, I handed the baby back. She was in tears. I was in tears. And it was difficult. But I thought when leaving there, I will remember those 2 words, and I do, others do, the world does. And we have a responsibility, therefore, to address this. And that stimulates me even more.
Yeah, thank you, Feike. We know what's moving story. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing. You also founded Feike, the Africa Improved Foods to address hunger. And the African I was born and raised in North Africa. It's so important using local manufacturing, by the way, and you were given the United Nations Humanitarian of the Year award, well deserved. I'd be interested to hear more about that. Specifically, there is a big focus lately on how we can sustainably feed a growing population. The Africa, the latest probably continent we have, for building more prosperity, but also with the angle of what's going on in Ukraine and the potential famine. People are really talking about a crisis and food crisis coming in by next winter because they are missing, a season now in Ukraine. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, at the end of the day, we cannot see the solution of hunger. And there are almost 1 billion people in the world who go to bed hungry already for decades. Almost every 5 seconds, a child dies in the arms of her own parents out of hunger. And food help is good as an emergency, but is not the final solution. And discussing first with Kofi Annan and later on with Ban Ki-moon and the head of the World Food Program at that moment, a good friend, Ertring Kusa, how should we solve this? We helped the World Food Program, but this is not the solution. They said, no, the solution is local production. I said, you're right. You know what? We will do that. And they said, yeah, sure. They said, no, we will really do that. So we made an analysis. We started in Rwanda. We started with 10,000 farmers. Now we have 150,000 farmers. We say to the farmers, we buy all your crops. We buy everything you produce. So that gives you continuity. We commit that for 3 years. Every year, a year drops and we add the year. We really commit ourselves to you guys. And we built a big factory in Kigali. We bring your crops to Kigali. We make nutritious food out of your crops for the local population. So locally sourced, locally processed for the local population. And now, as we speak, we are moving into Ethiopia and Kenya. And I would like to expand this through the entire Africa. And at the end, the company Africa Improved Foods, which has some investors, should be handed over to collectors of farmers, and they should own it. And then we get not only locally sourced, locally processed, and for the local population, but also locally owned. And I think this is the model. So I'm working very hard with AIF to get this achieved. And I think this is the model. Let's make Africa self-supporting, self-sufficient in their food production. And we do it now also. We help the farmers with technology, etc., to do that in a climate resilient manner. Because let's be honest, Africa, Bangladesh, island states are suffering already today from the climate change. You cannot accuse them that they caused it. We caused the climate change, and they are suffering in first instance now. So this is not fair, and I would like to contribute to that.
Yeah, and thank you. The African I am obviously is moved and thankful. And you're right. I mean, Africa is using less than 1 planet per capita, while others are using 4, 5, 6, whatever. So
Correct.
Indeed, there is a crisis in sustainably, food, support and supply to those populations. But you talked about the impacts on climate, and I know you are a co-chair of the Global Center on Adaptation. You have been
Correct.
always a leader, out there on climate action and adaptation. Is it enough? I mean, all our companies, and frankly, DSM is the best in class. You left a huge legacy for any running CEO today to get there in terms of neutrality, etc. COP26, disappointed, excited about what's happened. I think many companies, we've seen them pledging Paris Accords or SBTI, but from your vantage point, Feike, in that position as a climate leader, what actions are you seeing, or are you asking companies like ours to do more that really makes a difference today?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Ilham, and I think we have the responsibility to decrease our emissions and to work hard on technologies to decrease our emissions by roughly half in 2030 to net zero by 2050. And I set up also in next to the co-chair of the Global Climate Centers with Ban Ki-moon. We have also this CEO Climate Leaders Alliance, which I founded, and their CEOs and companies commit themselves to this 2030, 2050 targets aligned with SBTI, aligned with the Paris Treaty. Therefore, I like also to put a price of carbon to stimulate people even to do more on that. We stimulate to use the TCFD framework for the reporting and the transparency, etc., on all of this. So I think companies need to take a responsibility for their own company, but also for what we call scope 3 and for your customers, but of course also for your suppliers. So on the whole supply chain. Also, if you discuss circularity, I know you interviewed also my good friend Anna MacArthur. If you discuss circularity, also you need to discuss the whole supply chain. So companies need to take that responsibility, and they can help also their own supply chain with their own innovations and their own steps. On top of climate mitigation, so companies can contribute also to climate adaptation with their innovations and their technologies. On adaptation, companies do very little at this moment. It's more governments who work on that, but I stimulate companies also to work on this. And it has all to do with the beginning of our interview. It is what I call, you need to do well financially by doing good for the world. And you need to use the SDGs, you need to use the problems of the world to make your money and to contribute to a better world. Which I think served its purpose, but it's a little bit outdated, is all the corporate social responsibility activities, because that feels a little bit, we have a company, but on the side, we do some great things. No, I would like companies to do great things in the core of their business with their core competences in their own business model. Make your company future-proof, change your company, contribute to a better world, like climate, like hunger, like other SDGs. And I think companies have the technologies to do that. It means also that sometimes you need to change your company, and that is scary. You need to dare things to do that. We did it in DSM, and I know myself, it's very scary, because if you want to move your boat and fish somewhere else, then you need to lift your anchors, otherwise your boat is not moving. and lifting your anchors. Oh, that is scary. But you need to have the guts to do that and to adjust and adapt. And as a biologist, I always quote Darwin that at the end, it is the fittest who will survive, and not the biggest, not the strongest, not the fastest, but the ones who adapt the most. And I think companies need to adapt. As a society, we need to adapt because the old models will not be applicable in the future.
Yeah, what took us here will not bring us there. What's a testimonial? Thank you. Well, I cannot let you go, and this is a great conversation, without talking about diversity, equality, and inclusion. You are a big advocate. You are a catalyst champion. You say the diversity is invited to the party, but let's dance together. And diversity is what you see. Inclusion, equality is what you do. And you rightly said, I think I didn't hear it from many, to be honest with you. I heard you saying, I don't want to live in a world that is dominated and dictated by men. It was just straight to the point as usual, Feike. And you said as well, and we know there is a real clear business case for diversity, equality, and inclusion. How did you work to improve that at DSM? And is there any tip for many of us? Frankly, I mean, I could gain and score in financials, non-financials, etc. in my career, but I always find that DE&I is more difficult, right? Really, because getting women to follow STEM careers, getting it sticky inside the organization in the middle management, you may have blockers, you don't see them. How, give us some tips, give us some secrets. How do you see improvements across the board and across the industry?
We started, by the way, our whole journey 15 years ago with diversity. And then we said, no, it's not only diversity, it's diversity and inclusion, D&I. And then we said, no, it's inclusion and diversity, I&D. And then we said, basically, it is inclusion. And if you do inclusion well, diversity hopefully will follow. So that's one thing, because it has to do something with inclusion. It has to do something with unconscious bias, with not realizing things, etc. And therefore, the inclusion part is a very important element to get diversity in your company. With every topic that I addressed in my journey, I tried to spend some time on the why. People step too fast over the why and said, yeah, we know why we need to transform, or why we need to do good for the world, or why we need diversity. And I always said, no, let's spend a few more seconds on the why. Because if we are aligned on the why, we will find the how. If we are not aligned on the why, we will get confusion in the how. And the why, like you said, for me, why inclusion and diversity? Because I just don't want to live, or my boys growing up, 2 boys, I don't want them to grow up in a world that's dominated by men. That's one. Secondly, it's also not smart. It's not smart as companies, as society, to neglect 50% of the talents in the world, females, born women. And certainly, there is a clear business case that diversity helps in a company. If you look to innovation or whatever, and people need to realize the benefit of the party, what I call of surprises, and not always enjoy only the party of recognition of things you already knew. If you only have men around 50, white, coming from the same university, it is the party of confirmation. It's great. They confirm each other the whole day because they came from the same school, same thoughts, same, etc. That feels comfortable, but it's not helpful in innovation. It creates myopia. So better enjoy the party of surprises than the party of reconfirmation. Having done so, we got so much commitment on the why. We should come with commitment that we need to steer on inclusion. And that based on that, we developed programs. We asked a lot of questions. And we went, for example, into questions with top talent promotions. Why is this woman not promoted? And we took a couple of examples. And it was funny that some man said, well, I want to promote him and not her. And I said, why? Well, she is not ready. And I said, why is she not ready? Well, I don't know whether she's ready, but she indicates also that she's not ready. Said what? Well, the guy is much more aggressive, indicating that he's ready for the step. So I said, so your female candidate want to explore the context before she goes for it, where the guy want to go for it and figures out the context later on. This is a different approach, but they both do the same context and going for it, but in different order. Don't let yourself being misled by behavior which you don't recognize because you're a man, but which is very good. And we need that desperately in our company. Those kind of insights help people say, yeah, you're right. Maybe she's ready, but she expresses it in a different way. Said, yeah.
Absolutely.
And therefore, look in a less biased way. And I cannot prevent, everybody, including myself, is biased. But we should realize that and try, therefore, to make the right step.
And I loved what you said, Feike, about the why, and that's we need to pause. You made me, when you were talking, thinking about Mark Twain, quotes about the two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. And we need to continuously pause on the why, including in our organization. You spoke about your two sons, right? And you care very deeply also about young people. What leadership advice would you give to our next generation of leaders? What's your recipe of success for becoming a leader, in your opinion, Feike?
A couple of things. What I think which makes a leader a good leader, of course, there are many elements. You need to be decisive. You need to do this, etc. You need to develop a vision. You need to connect with people. You need to deliver. You need to develop other people, etc. But for me, it starts with insight. If you as a leader have no insights, and insight is insight in yourself, your own strengths, your own weakness, your own habits, your own impact, your own shadow, insight in the people you work with, and insight in the world you operate in. If you have no insights, you will not become a good leader, how decisive or whatever you are. Develop your insights. And the interesting thing with insights is insights come with listening, observing, reading, talking with people and listening to them. And leaders who in the leadership development trajectory and become leaders even are sometimes more on stage, talking, presenting, telling. And you don't develop a lot of insights by doing that. You develop more insights by what I said. So insight is an important thing. And I hope my sons and I hope all leaders in the world will work on their insight. I hope the second thing is that they work on the power, what you call, and I embrace that very much, what you call the power of and. Be successful and create a better world, not instead of, but and not and. You need to do both, and that means, per definition, you need to be caring. You need to be caring for your own organization, for your own people, for your own family, but caring for society also. Imagine that you would be very successful in your job, in your health, etc., but your kids are not doing well, your wife is ill, or whatever. And if you meet somebody and that somebody asks you, how are you doing? You most likely will not say excellent. You will say, well, so. And that somebody, oh, something with your job? No, job is excellent. Your house? No, it's excellent. So why? Because the people I care about are not doing well, and therefore I don't feel well. And we live increasingly in a global village globally. And therefore, we need to have that caring feeling, not only for our own people. We are so interlinked. You see it now in the current crisis in Ukraine, how interrelated, interconnected we are all in the world. So we live in a kind of global village, and I hope we will be caring. And like I often say, Ilham, at the end of the day, you cannot be successful, or if you can, don't even call yourself successful if you live in a world that fails. Try to repair that world and make that world a better place in your interest, but also in your moral compass interest. And that is what drives me.
Fabulous. So last question. a bit more lighter. I heard that you love Motown music. What is your favorite song?
Uh, I like very much Motown music. I grew up with that. I liked it. I liked all of them of Motown. But I had one, I don't want to call it secret love because she was unreachable. And let my wife not hear this, but Diana Ross.
Wow.
And
I
Diana
know
Ross
her.
Supremes and later on her single career. I mean, I was such a fan of the Supremes, such a fan of Diana Ross.
Yeah.
And the music really is I loved it and still do, by the way.
Yeah. One of my favorites, because in Morocco, in my generation, we were listening to Diana Ross. So thank you. Thank you so much, Feike, for joining me today. This has been, a fascinating conversation and discussion. Obviously, you are a true leader, catalyst who is inspiring me and many business leaders around the world to actually do well and do good. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much, Ilham. And very nice you do this podcast, The Power of and you are a living example as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. For more information or to listen to other episodes, visit our website. And if you like these podcasts, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, be safe.